important element in any community, and its survival is key in maintaining the norms and the practices of every single community. It is unfortunate that despite the fact that the family is also integral in the running and growing of the church, the devil has done utmost damage in the family unit. It is for this reason that in this month of October, we have sought to discuss together and share together wisdom in how we can build our families and marriages in a way that fortifies us against the attacks and wiles of the devil. And in so doing, we will be building together and strengthening the church as a unit and as a system. It is my prayer that as we undertake the next couple of weeks, we have already begun with our first episode, but as we undertake the next couple of weeks, we will work together in learning together, in growing together to stabilize the family unit enough to ensure that the future of the family ensures the future of the church and community. In the effort to try and alleviate the challenges that families are experiencing in this day and age, we are going to look into a topic of interest to us as a family in the theme or under the theme of the 4 seasons of marriage. And the understanding behind this is that every marriage goes through 4 seasons in its lifetime. These seasons may come and interchange across each other. They may come in whatever form or shape. They may come at whatever intervals that they suit whatever the marriage is going through. But in each instance, we must be careful to understand what season it is that we are undergoing currently and how best we can alleviate the challenges and take advantage of the opportunities of whatever season that we are going through. Now, there are 4 seasons in nature. We have summer, autumn, winter, and spring. Each one is characterized by certain things that occur in its tenure. And in each term or in each season, there are things that happen that do not happen in other seasons. For example, in winter, you find that trees have shriveled and leaves have fallen. Trees are naked and things seem to be dying. And there are things that happen in the winter season that perpetuate that kind of situation. But in the marriage setting, you will realize that there are certain things in the winter season that ought to be done in order to shift away from the winter, from the coldness of winter, and go into another season, which may be spring, which may be summer, whatever the future would hold for that particular marriage. Now, the first season that we'll look into is the season of winter. In the winter, the world of nature is cold, it is dry, it is pale, it is dreadful. It is accompanied by death and decay. Plants die, brooks and rivers dry up, and dams also begin to dry up. There are similar expectations also with a relationship that passes through a season of winter. There are certain things that occur in that relationship at that particular time that call us to attention and that summon us to do something about the situation that our relationship would be going through. There are several feelings and emotions, attitudes and actions that constitute each season. We will consider each section of each season, its emotions, attitude, actions, and the climate of the relationship in order to know how best to deal with it. It may be caused by just one problem, whatever season it is that we are in, may be caused by one problem or by a myriad of problems that no one is willing to compromise on. And in order to deal with that season, we will need to unpack it in order to understand and appreciate it. Now, what are the emotions that come along with the winter season? In nature, of course, it would be gloomy, it would be dry, it would be decaying. But in a relationship, we are talking about the feelings such as hurt. You find that the one or both parties are hurting in their relationship. There is anger and aggression between the two parties. There is disappointment sometimes because of what has happened or what we have allowed to happen in our relationship. There is loneliness because of the because we have ostracized each other from ourselves. There is rejection because of the environment in which we find ourselves in. What are the attitudes that we find in the season of winter in our relationships and marriages? Now, winter is characterized by negativity. We don't want to see the progressive side of things. It is characterized by discouragement because of what we are going through. It is characterized by frustration because perhaps one of the parties or both parties are trying, but it doesn't seem like something will work out. It is also characterized by hopelessness. And all of these are attitudes that surround the natural space of winter, the cold and dry season of winter. Now, what actions then ensue in this type of season? We find that a relationship that is passing through the season of winter is characterized by distraction. Nothing seems to be gelling together. Things are falling apart. There are harsh tones, especially in communication. We are not kind to each other. We don't seek to understand or appreciate one another. We push each other unnecessarily with the tone of our speech. Sometimes we don't even speak at all. We are silent and we budge each other in the passageways and in the bathroom and in the communal spaces. And by the way, when all of this is going on, if it is a family that already has children or there are other parties that are part of our daily lives, they feel what we are going through, and they need us to resolve whatever situation it is so that their lives are not affected by the coldness of the wintry season that we are passing through. Sometimes it does not just end with the harshness of tone in the voice. It does not just end with the silent treatment, but it also progresses to aggression and physical fighting. And in the age of gender-based violence that we are in now, in the harrowing events that are happening in our communities, we ought to be careful in the way that we deal with one another so that we do not become so violent that we can even come to a point where we are so aggressive and violent with one another that we are detrimental in our relationship. Now, what is the climate of our relationship in the winter season? We are detached, we are cold, we are harsh, we are bitter. We are unwilling to negotiate. We don't want anything to do with anyone who comes to us in order to try and help us. We are argumentative. We withdraw into silence. When something seems like it is coming our way, we immediately withdraw into silence as a way of dealing with that aggression. We see no sense in talking about togetherness. Two people could be living in the same house, but they would be living in their own private bubbles. They would be living their own lives that they don't want anyone to interfere with. And that becomes detrimental to marriage, because marriage brings people together that complement one another instead of conflict with one another. Of course, conflict will come in any given relationship, whether it's a friendship or a work relationship or a marriage. Conflict will come, but that conflict must not separate us from one another. But we must do everything in our power in order to resolve the conflict so that we are brought together again. Now, we have heard all of these negatives about winter and the drear and gloom that accompanies it. The biggest question now is, what is the positive side of winter? What positives do we derive from the season of winter? In the natural world, winter brings death, but it also makes way for a rebirth. Because when something has died, naturally it recycles and comes back to life. Winter, though outwardly dreadful, also harbors new life. In what seems to be death and decay, in what seems to be negativity, in what seems to be dread, in what seems to be buried under the snow, eventually when the snow fizzles off, when the snow melts away, when the wintry cold begins to fade away, new life begins to shoot in the plants. Now, what is the positive side of winter in our marriages? In marriage, once a couple realizes that they are in winter, they can choose to undergo counseling. Now, this counseling will become a breath of fresh air. It will breathe new life into the marriage. Now, the undertone here is that we are both deliberate in seeking counsel so that we are able to rebuild a marriage that seemed to be breaking and falling apart. Counseling may come from a friend we trust, a friend we know will come to us with a clear mind to give us bricks to build our home. Instead of that friend that you know will be taking one side instead of the other, will be throwing stones also and making nasty comments to make us feel that we are no longer in our right space. But we can find that one friend sometimes who is in our circle, who is able to build us when it seems like things are falling apart. Counseling could also be from a pastor such as myself, a pastor who is able to cloudlessly help us deal with our winter season, so that when we have outpoured ourselves, we are able to build again a freshness and a newness into our marriage. But there could also be a relationship counselor that we are referred to. If a pastor like myself is not able to deal with your situation, they can refer you to another person who can provide counseling in your time of need. Now, it may not necessarily be exciting or fun, because naturally when we go to a counselor to deal with our issues, we have to unpack what we are going through, and that process is not easy. Now, it may not be exciting or fun, but it will definitely be worth it, because in unpacking the problem, we can be able to take away the things that are unnecessary, that are ruining the flow of our relationship and our marriage, so that we can begin to rebuild and have a newness of life. Now, that is the season of winter. Evaluate yourself. What type of environment are you living in at home? What type of marriage are you having? If you are engaged to be married, you can already assess that in your relationship, no matter how short or long, you have gone through certain spaces of life, and you alone can sit down with your partner and say, we need to be counseled so that we are able to come out of the winter season and elevate to a different season. Winter might be the worst that happens to any marriage, because like we have already said, winter breeds death, and we ought to fight to the death so that our marriage can be reborn and be re-engaged. Now, a closing comment. Every marriage undergoes these seasons in a way that probably is not the same as other marriages. Every marriage is different. Don't compare your marriage with that of your neighbor or your friend or your pastor or someone at church. Your marriage is unique. Work at it in a way that suits you and your spouse. Now, each marriage undergoes these seasons in a way that is different, like I've already said. Now, the traditional view would say that for the first couple of months or the first 2 years of marriage, we would be in a honeymoon phase. In that phase, no one can do wrong. Everyone is good. We love each other. We can even sleep without bathing, because the scent of dirty socks is so good to us. Well, that's a joke, but in essence, we cannot do wrong in this season. Now, having passed through the honeymoon season, we then enter into the various seasons of marriage. And as we enter into those seasons of marriage, if we are not adequately prepared, then each season coming with its own challenges can either make or break our marriages. In these couple of weeks, I hope and I pray that we will begin to appreciate and learn from each other, that each of these seasons, no matter how good, no matter how bad, the mixture of those good and bad can help us in building together our marriages and our families in a way that will make the family to be a little heaven on earth, like Ellen White says. May our homes be a little heaven that calls attention even to our own children to see how good it is to be Christians and how good it is to be married, in the way that we will behave, in the speech, in the deeds that we will do. It is my prayer that as we begin, or as we undertake these couple of weeks together, we will learn from each other and we will grow from each other. May the Lord bless you, and may He keep you safe until next week.